Welcome! This is the first chapter in a series devoted to helping you understand what CSDR is. CSDR is the key piece of regulation governing how CSDs work and are organized. It will allow you to obtain a basic understanding of the key concepts. Let's start by setting some groundwork. What is a CSD? A central securities depository is a regulated entity that issues and safekeeps securities, financial assets that can be traded like stocks, bonds, or funds shares. CSDs help investors transfer ownership of these assets in an electronic way, instead of sending physical certificates. Every time a security is traded, a post-trade process follows, when a trade is cleared by a central counterpart and then settled by a CSD. Think of a CSD as a notary or a bookkeeper, which registers each transaction and makes sure that securities are delivered to the buyer against the cash received by the seller. To operate, CSDs must be authorized by their national competent authorities. There are two requisites to achieve this. First, they must operate on IT platforms known as security settlement systems, which ensure that traded securities are actually settled once traded. Second, they must offer at least one of the following: either notary services, where they record all newly issued securities in a book entry system, or central securities account maintenance services, or safekeeping of securities. In practice, most CSDs offer these three core services. On top of those, CSDs also offer non-core services. Some of them are also authorized to offer ancillary banking services, but we'll discuss this in a later video. Now let's take the bull by the horns. What does CSDR stand for? After the 2008 crisis, the European Union implemented a series of new regulations to increase the functioning of financial markets and to better protect investors. One of them was the Central Securities Depositories Regulation, or CSDR. The crisis prompted the creation of a pan-European legislation providing a high level of resilience of CSDs and settlement processes across Europe. The primary objective of CSDR is to increase the safety of securities settlements. And it accomplishes that in three main ways: setting out uniform obligations on the settlement processes for all CSDs in Europe, setting out a series of conduct rules that all CSDs have to comply with, defining requirements to govern the access to CSDs by other market participants. CSDs will have to obtain an authorization to ensure they comply with CSDR provisions. Let's look at the main stakeholders in a typical securities transaction chain. In our example, A, B, C, and D would be considered as participants in the SSS operated by the CSD. A and B would be considered as direct participants and C and D as indirect participants. Also, B would typically be a custodian bank that serves as intermediary between investment or retail banks or brokers-dealers, C and D, and the CSD in the whole settlement process. The people represent the end investors, the actual individual or companies buying or selling a security. Did you know that CSDs can settle against central bank money or against commercial bank money? To preserve the financial soundness of the settlement systems, CSDs most frequently do not take credit and liquidity risks and settle securities in central bank money, which means that the cash received for the payment of securities transactions comes from an account held by a CSD client at a central bank. Only CSDs authorized to offer banking services will settle securities transactions in commercial bank money.